Slight push in on this Logan, but nothing much. And camera has frame.
These are great.
So how do you approach cinematography in small spaces? That's the subject I'd like to cover today, and using my most recent work on a spec project for Exact Nutrition. This was shot on location in a beautiful cabin cottage alongside some running sequences that we did along the roads and the paths that led to this house. Now, this cottage was a very, very small location to work in, so I'd like to go over some of my techniques and some of my different ways that I like to approach cinematography when you're met with these smaller locations that don't offer the luxury of having a lot of space, at least on the inside of the location. So my main approach for cinematography in small spaces would be using larger lights or larger sources on the outside. So keeping the clutter of all the big stands, all the bigger lights, keep that to the outside. This allows for a more naturalistic look and allows you to get those lights a lot farther away, therefore creating that distance that is required to have those natural shadows and those natural occurring rays, if you will. Now, what you can use within the house or the small cramped space, you can use a lot of fabrics, a lot of things that can be moved around easily, a lot of things that can be broken down and set up quite quickly. Now there's one example that I'd like to go over, which was we had this shot that was pushing in on our main actor. And we had a lot of spill coming from camera left onto this wooden wall that we wanted to get rid of. So simply by placing a negative fabric along that side, we killed that, created more contrast, and allowed our eye to go to the subject a lot more easily. And the basics of controlling your light on the inside really plays its part here, because those fabrics and things can be moved around quite quickly, and we create that natural consistency with using our bigger sources on the outside, and it also frees up the room quite a bit more so that cast and crew can be more comfortable and move around and work a lot easier in the space. I would say, as far as fixtures to be used on the inside, start looking at using your tube lights, start looking at using your small MC lights. Now we had a practical in that same shot. Light things with practically as much as you can. Another example of a small source used on the inside would be, we had this small panel light that was extending our window source from this shot we did of him getting ready in his bedroom. We had the practical lamps on because it was supposedly early morning in the film, so it kind of made sense that, you know, the lamps were still on at this time, and that window light that we see was extended so that it was motivated by this small 2x1 panel, which we had vertically to reduce the spill on the walls and maintain it on our main actor. And again, this comes back to the principle of, when you're in small and tight spaces, be effective and be simple. And if it looks good, it is good. So you don't have to overcomplicate things when you're working in these spaces. Just try to keep things to a minimal so you can move fast and there's not a lot of resets between your different setups. The other thing I would like to touch on is just a bit of a logistical thing. It would be to keep all of your lights, your stands, your heavier equipment on the outside if it's easily accessible or if it's safe to do so. I would highly recommend having your grips and electrics to work from that area, just to keep the clutter and everything safe. And I would also say look into, especially for this shoot, it was uplifted run and gun, if you will. So we were looking at keeping things quite down and low profile. So I would say keeping your your tree, try to maintain the video village, everything to a minimum. Our director was seeing picture through an iPad, so this was really easily accessible and easily to move around, and our first AC tree was very portable. Keeping everything contained and easily broken down and accessible really lent itself to us being able to move as fast as we did for the day, because we only had one day to shoot this. We were on location quite early, and the sun set at around 4 p.m. So that didn't give us a lot of time. So we had to move through these morning sequences quite fast. So again, the things that I would do to keep things moving efficiently and moving well when working in small spaces, I would say keep all of your larger lamps and your larger sources to the outside. Use negatives and your bounce materials. All your light control stays on the inside. Be able to shape that light the way you want it, and use your small sources to your advantage. Use practicals. So that all came in handy and came all together for us to be able to move as fast as we did on the day, get as many shots as we did. Keeping things simple and effective. Setups don't always have to be super complicated. So sometimes you just need to look at what's happening in the room, and sometimes one light source is enough to get the job done. And so keeping it mobile, keeping your equipment ready to go, and as mobile as possible also helps a lot. And those would be my main ways to approach cinematography in small spaces, using the commercial we did for Exact as an example.
Clarity. Through frozen breath and numb fingers that makes 5 miles feel like 50. Morning runs become meditation. Until the pacing finds its rhythm and something shifts. The wall becomes a door. The impossible becomes inevitable. Because out here, on empty roads and crowded start lines, we're all chasing the same thing.